Good morning, Chillie with Chilliescruises here on Travel and Cruise Industry News for the 7th day of September 2019. I'm coming to you from Forest, Virginia, as we always do on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. Welcome to each and every one of you. If we have some new folks, I certainly do welcome you for the first time. Technical side of things, I am trying. I need to get out of that. Whoa, okay, sorry about that. I had volume on and didn't realize it as I was checking to make sure I'm live on my tablet. You know, I got technical issues. Anyway, we're live. We're on the air. Appreciate all y'all being here. We're up to 1,496 subscribers, and with this being a weekend, we'll probably go over the 1,500 mark this weekend. We always get a little goose in the numbers over the weekend. It's nice that things are calmed down. It's a somewhat calm day, both news-wise and everything else. Of course, we're still talking about Hurricane Dorian. Hurricane Dorian is now off over the Atlantic, heading toward Nova Scotia. It's still a Category 1 the last time I checked. It's questionable now whether it will reach somewhere in the vicinity of Halifax, Nova Scotia tonight as a Category 1 or a tropical storm. It's probably going to be a tropical storm by then. Now we're just dealing with primarily, quite frankly, although there was a lot of flooding and storm surge and all that up and down the east coast of the United States, we skated on this one a lot more than was expected. There was actually an official landfall yesterday at Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, which is a little tip that sits out there in the Outer Banks, and for it to be an official landfall, the center of the eye has to be on land, not the outer edge of the eye, part of the eye. The center has to be on land, and it did reach that on that little tip of Cape Hatteras. I think it was probably on land for about 17 seconds and then back off in the ocean. And then it started speeding up and getting out of Dodge. Now, there was still lots of rain, North Carolina and Virginia, even after it started heading away. Got a lot of rain during the day yesterday. Of course, flooding and storm surge and all that, and wind. But it's gone now. Things are getting back to normal today. Cleanup, of course, has begun. Which brings us to the main topic of the morning is the whole situation in the Bahamas. And I'd like to say that, there's the survivors in Abaco and Great Bahama Islands. They're all trying to flee the area, and there's not enough transportation available to get them to better places. I mean, there's nothing left on those islands. The buildings are gone, and they're trying to get out of there and get to inhabited places in the Bahamas. So they're using boats, they're using airplanes, and there's still, just thousands of people waiting to get out of there. I will say the cruise industry has stepped up big time as far as aid. All the companies are sending aid. They're sending ships in with food. Even passengers on the cruise ships are helping out with the staff for packing meals and stuff and delivering it. The cruise industry is doing the right thing here. They're helping out as much as they can, but it's still there's thousands of people literally trying to get away from those two areas that are totally devastated, and there's just not enough available to get them all moved. The official death count now, and I hate to use it that way, but that's what it is. It's up to 43. It's expected to increase a bunch. But at least the aid efforts are helping from all sorts of sources. Too many to sit and name, but all the cruise lines, a lot of individual efforts. Like my friend Kyle is still flying in and out of there daily with supplies and moving people. And there's a lot of that. So that part of it is good. Interestingly, President Trump, and again, folks, you guys know I do not use this space for anything political. This is not the time and place for it unless it specifically affects the travel and cruise industry. I have long been an opponent of the president's decision on Cuba when he canceled the whole all travel from the United States into Cuba, which totally screwed the cruise industry. Now, President Trump is asking for additional help from the cruise industry by providing a temporary housing for the Bahamas folks affected by the hurricane, when the cruise industry on their own is helping out a lot. So I think it's interesting and pretty ballsy move on the president's part to ask for help from the cruise industry after he totally shafted the cruise industry over Cuba. Again, I'm not a political position, folks. I'm just talking about how it affects the cruise and travel industry. And maybe some of them can take a ship and get it over there for housing. Yeah, keep in mind, cruise lines operate by having the ship scheduled, doing things and going places with passengers. That's how they make their money. So they don't have just an empty ship sitting around. So I'm not sure that is a realistic request, but it's certainly might be. So anyway, the whole situation with Grand Bahama Islands and Abaco, it's going to be a long time. That the whole area has got to be totally rebuilt, and they're not even finished with the looking for bodies yet in these areas. So that's why the death toll is going to go up further. They still haven't gotten to all those areas. But anyway, folks, if you can help out in any way you can, whether it's pledging money or dropping supplies off at the various places that are collecting supplies, help out any way you can. We still have literally thousands of people in the Bahamas that have lost everything but the clothes on their back. So, and all of us have been to the Bahamas numerous times that love to travel and especially take cruises. So we all support the efforts going on. And let's try to get these folks back to normal as soon as possible. It's still a terrible situation. And it's going to go on forever. But that's really, there's not any new news out of there. As we go forward now, folks, there'll be reports on the body counts, and there'll be reports and think people not doing what they're supposed to do, and those kind of investigations that always come out of this. And there'll be construction people taking advantage of people, and that kind of crap's going to happen. So I hope the Bahamian folks have some good protections in place for that. It's going to be a long haul for the northern Bahama Islands. Specifically from the cruise industry, there were 12 cruises that were totally canceled because of this. So not only is the cruise industry helping out with the recovery and the humanitarian efforts now, but a number of cruises were canceled, which was a direct loss of income for the companies. And rightly, I mean, there's no choice around it. That just had to happen. As far as the private islands go, Coco Key is opening today for guests, which will be the first one actually reopened as far as the private islands go. All of the other private islands had some damage, but it was not structural. It was mostly cosmetic damage, and of course cleanup and so forth. And they are all scheduling reopening during this next week. So that part of the Bahamas will be back to normal. The cruise lines have not even gotten up to the point of rescheduling Freeport visits to other places. That will happen, I'm sure, over the next week or so, as Freeport, other than taking supplies and stuff and dropping it off and tendered and in, however they're doing it in those areas, it's going to be a long time before we go back to actually being in Freeport, I'm afraid. But anyway, so that's going to happen. So any of you that are on cruises for the next several months that we're stopping at places like Freeport, know that that's going to get changed. A little sip of coffee, and rightly so. But other than Freeport specifically, as far as the cruise industry goes, I think a lot of the Bahamas are going to be pretty much back to normal procedure in short order here within the next week. So the changes ahead we'll find out about as we get there. So a couple other things to mention this morning. And this one is a sad story. A crew member died falling from the Vision of the Seas cruise ship while it was docked in Livorno, Italy. He's a 25-year-old Filipino man, was working on the starboard side of this Royal Caribbean ship when he fell. Many will say it's impossible to fall overboard, but in this case, it's believed that the crew member was doing work which required a safety harness, and it's not clear how he fell, but it was when the ship was at Pier 47 at the Italian port next to a docked cargo ship. A search was launched for the crewman after he fell into the water, and divers from the fire department implemented a search. Sadly, the body was later pulled out, which is, of course, send our condolences to the crew member's family and friends back home, along with his fellow crew members on the Vision of the Seas. Hate reporting stories like that, but, unfortunately, things like that happen occasionally. But this was apparently purely an accidental situation. The other thing to report this morning, came out yesterday afternoon, some figures from St Maarten, however you say that. Over 1 million cruise passengers have been to St Maarten so far in 2019. It's one of the most popular cruise ports in the Caribbean. I've been there several times myself. Those numbers were received between January and July, right at 1.1 million passengers, via 373 visits by cruise ships. The biggest quarter, of course, was the first quarter, January to March, where more than 650,000 passengers on 264 cruise ship visits. Keep in mind that St. Maarten lost some time over hurricanes itself in the last couple of years, and has bounced back extremely well. Of course, they didn't have near as bad a situation as like Puerto Rico, but still they had some significant damage and were closed for some time following the hurricanes 2 years ago. They're expecting to surpass 1.5 million passengers by the cruise end of the year, unless there's some kind of major interruptions due to weather issues that come up. In other words, another badass hurricane that would hit there could change things. So St. Maarten back on its feet and doing very well. It's a nice port. If you've never been there, you need to go there. That part of the Eastern Caribbean, I love. I love St. Maarten. I love St. Thomas. I love the Tortola is probably my favorite island. I enjoy that a lot. The Eastern Caribbean is a nice place. So that's about it for this morning. Let's see. Hey, Bonnie. Glad you could stop by today. Give Bubba and Princess a kiss for me. On a personal note, folks, I have, everybody knows my lack of technical skills. They're not existent. I need a permanent 10-year-old kid to teach me stuff. And I'm too old to have one of my own. So I'm thinking about going out and stealing a kid and keeping him here just to teach me how to do this crazy stuff on the computer. No, seriously. I have to today install a printer. I've had it sitting here. It's been sitting right over here next to my desk for 3 weeks in the box because I'm afraid to unpack it and try to do that. So I have decided to take matters into my own hands. I need the printer back because my old printer was a Dell printer that they quit making the toner for, the ink for. So the printer, even though it was a great printer, you can't get ink for it. It's done. So I had to go buy a new printer. I need the printer. So today, since I don't have a ball game this weekend, but my niece is gone for the next 2 weeks. So I'm taking her pet sitting business and running it for 2 weeks, but I don't have anything scheduled this weekend. I'm going to tackle the printer today to make sure that gets done. I went out and bought a brand new bottle of Elijah Craig bourbon, and the bourbon and me are going to tackle the printer and try to get it installed. That's my job for the weekend. So when we're back together again on Tuesday, I will report in on my success at installing the printer. So that's it for this morning. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you're new to this channel, we appreciate it. You can always look down in the descriptions down below for links and stuff to, my Amazon account. If you go shopping on Amazon and buy something, I'll make a few pennies. My Audible account, because I use Audible a lot. I like it. You can buy Audible. I make a few pennies. That always helps keep the channel running and covers those silly expenses that we have in doing stuff like this. I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you'd like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports, calls, cruises themselves, the interview show called Chillie Chats, and I got to start working on that again because I think now I've got a handle on how we can do it. But we need to start scheduling some chats. And of course, travel and cruise industry news Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings. Just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. and click on the bell notification. You'll be notified when a new video is posted or when I go live. And that's about it for the weekend. As always, appreciate a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You know, I always want a thumbs up, but if you give me a thumbs down, that's cool too. That still tells the folks up there at YouTube that somebody's watching and listening. So that's it for the weekend. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll, of course, be going live or a video with if anything major happens over the weekend. I'm looking for a nice, easy, slow weekend with my bottle of bourbon and my printer. So that's it from now. This is Chillie, the fat travel guy. Later, y'all.